Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we are discussing the latest developments surrounding the Vietnamese Dong, global currency markets, and the growing international attention on Vietnam's economic future. Over the last several months, the Vietnamese Dong has become one of the most talked about currencies among emerging market investors, economists, exporters, and currency watchers around the world. Many people are asking whether Vietnam is preparing for a stronger currency policy, whether the Vietnamese economy is entering a new phase of rapid growth, and whether there is any possibility of a major exchange rate adjustment or revaluation in the future. In today's full analysis, we are going to break down the latest financial news, international economic trends, export growth, foreign investment, central bank policies, and the real factors that could influence the future direction of the Vietnamese Dong. Vietnam continues to strengthen its position as one of Asia's fastest growing economies. International companies are expanding operations into Vietnam at a rapid pace. Manufacturing activity remains strong, and global investors are increasingly viewing Vietnam as a strategic economic partner in Southeast Asia. This growing confidence in Vietnam's economy has naturally increased attention on the Vietnamese Dong and its long-term stability against major world currencies like the US dollar, euro, Chinese yuan, Japanese yen, and British pound. In recent weeks, analysts have closely monitored movements in the foreign exchange market as the State Bank of Vietnam continues balancing inflation control, export competitiveness, and monetary stability. While the Vietnamese Dong remains managed under a controlled exchange rate system, there has been growing speculation among investors about the possibility of gradual currency strengthening if Vietnam's economic performance continues exceeding expectations. One of the biggest reasons behind this renewed attention is Vietnam's impressive export sector. Vietnam has become a major manufacturing hub for electronics, textiles, machinery, and technology products. Companies from around the world continue shifting production into Vietnam as global supply chains diversify away from overdependence on single-country manufacturing systems. This transformation has significantly increased Vietnam's export revenues and foreign currency reserves, both of which are critical factors influencing currency stability. Economic experts say that Vietnam's foreign direct investment numbers remain among the strongest in the region. Large multinational corporations continue investing billions of dollars into factories, industrial parks, logistics infrastructure, renewable energy projects, and technology production facilities across Vietnam. These investments not only strengthen economic growth, but also increase international demand for the Vietnamese Dong over the long term. Another major factor driving interest in the Vietnamese Dong is the changing global financial environment. The US Federal Reserve, European Central Bank, and other global financial institutions continue adjusting interest rate policies in response to inflation, economic slowdown fears, and shifting trade conditions. Emerging markets like Vietnam are now being watched more closely because investors are searching for economies with strong growth potential and stable manufacturing expansion. Currency analysts say the Vietnamese Dong has shown resilience compared to many other developing market currencies during periods of global volatility. While some regional currencies experienced heavy depreciation pressures due to rising US interest rates and international uncertainty, Vietnam managed to maintain relative stability through careful monetary management and strong export performance. Now many viewers are asking the biggest question: is there any real possibility of a Vietnamese Dong revaluation? To answer that question properly, we first need to understand what a currency revaluation actually means. In simple terms, a revaluation occurs when a government or central bank officially increases the value of its currency relative to foreign currencies. This usually happens under fixed or heavily managed exchange rate systems. However, major revaluations are relatively rare because governments must carefully balance trade competitiveness, inflation, foreign investment, and economic growth. For Vietnam, maintaining export competitiveness remains extremely important. A currency that strengthens too quickly could make Vietnamese products more expensive internationally, potentially reducing export demand. This is why most economists believe that if the Vietnamese dong strengthens significantly in the future, it would likely happen gradually rather than through a sudden dramatic move. At the same time, supporters of long-term dong appreciation point to Vietnam's rapidly expanding economy, rising foreign reserves, improving infrastructure, and increasing global trade partnerships. Vietnam has signed multiple international trade agreements over the past decade, giving its exporters wider access to major markets around the world. These trade agreements continue strengthening Vietnam's economic influence internationally. Another important development is the ongoing modernization of Vietnam's financial system. Banking reforms, digital payment expansion, foreign investment regulation improvements, and infrastructure development are all contributing to stronger international confidence in Vietnam's economy. Financial institutions around the world are increasingly recognizing Vietnam as a long-term growth story, rather than just a low-cost manufacturing destination. Meanwhile, global supply chain shifts continue benefiting Vietnam in a major way. As companies diversify operations across Asia, Vietnam has positioned itself as one of the primary beneficiaries. Industrial production zones continue expanding, port activity remains strong, and export orders in several sectors have shown continued recovery despite global economic uncertainties. Energy development is also becoming a major factor in Vietnam's economic future. Vietnam has been investing heavily in renewable energy, including solar and wind projects, while simultaneously upgrading transportation infrastructure and industrial capacity. These long-term investments could strengthen productivity and attract even more international capital into the country. Some financial analysts believe that if Vietnam continues maintaining strong GDP growth while controlling inflation effectively, the Vietnamese dong could gradually strengthen against weaker regional currencies over time. However, most professional economists caution viewers against unrealistic expectations of sudden overnight currency jumps or extreme revaluation scenarios that frequently circulate online without official confirmation. It is very important for viewers and investors to separate verified economic analysis from speculation. Currency markets are influenced by multiple complex factors, including interest rates, inflation, trade balances, government policy, political stability, international investment flows, and global economic conditions. No credible financial institution has officially announced any dramatic Vietnamese dong revaluation event. However, continued economic strengthening could still support long-term currency stability and gradual appreciation trends. Another key issue investors are watching is inflation management. Inflation remains one of the most important challenges for central banks worldwide. Vietnam's ability to maintain relatively stable inflation while supporting economic growth has helped strengthen investor confidence. If inflation remains controlled while exports and investment continue expanding, this could provide additional support for the dong in the future. Tourism recovery is also contributing positively to Vietnam's economic outlook. International tourism continues recovering after previous global disruptions, bringing additional foreign currency revenue into the country. Major cities like Hanoi, Ho Chi Minh City, Da Nang, and coastal tourism destinations are experiencing increasing international visitor activity once again. Tourism growth supports employment, business expansion, and foreign exchange earnings. The technology sector is another area attracting strong attention. Vietnam is increasingly becoming involved in electronics manufacturing, semiconductor supply chains, and technology production. Global technology companies continue exploring Vietnam as a strategic manufacturing and operational base. This trend could play a major role in Vietnam's future economic expansion over the next decade. International credit agencies have have also been monitoring Vietnam's economic performance closely. Positive outlooks from global financial institutions can increase investor confidence and encourage additional capital inflows. As confidence grows, long-term support for the Vietnamese Dong may strengthen further. At the same time, risks still remain. The global economy continues facing uncertainty related to inflation, geopolitical tensions, energy prices, trade disruptions, and slowing growth in some major economies. Vietnam's export-driven economy remains connected to global demand conditions, meaning international slowdowns could still affect manufacturing activity and trade performance. The relationship between the Vietnamese Dong and the US dollar is especially important because global trade and financial markets remain heavily dollar-based. Changes in US monetary policy directly influence emerging market currencies worldwide. When the US Federal Reserve raises interest rates aggressively, the dollar often strengthens globally, creating pressure on many developing market currencies. Conversely, when US rate pressures ease, emerging markets may experience improved currency stability and stronger capital inflows. In recent financial discussions, some analysts have suggested that Vietnam's strategic economic positioning could allow the country to benefit from long-term regional growth trends in Asia. Population growth, industrial expansion, rising consumer demand, infrastructure investment, and increasing trade integration all support Vietnam's long-term development story. Investors are also paying attention to Vietnam's growing middle class. Rising incomes, expanding urbanization, and consumer spending growth are transforming Vietnam into not only a manufacturing hub, but also a major consumer market. This diversification strengthens economic resilience over time. One of the strongest points supporting Vietnam's future outlook is its ability to attract manufacturing relocation. Companies seeking production diversification continue viewing Vietnam as a stable and attractive destination due to competitive labor costs, strategic geographic positioning, and expanding infrastructure networks. This long-term industrial growth could continue generating export earnings and supporting financial stability. Some currency watchers compare Vietnam today to the early economic expansion phases seen in several rapidly developing Asian economies decades ago. While every country follows a different economic path, Vietnam's consistent growth performance has undeniably increased global interest in the country's future financial trajectory. Meanwhile, local businesses in Vietnam continue adapting to digital transformation trends. E-commerce expansion, fintech innovation, and digital banking adoption are accelerating throughout the country. These changes modernize the economy and improve financial system efficiency, potentially strengthening investor confidence over the long term. There has also been increased discussion about de-dollarization trends globally. Some countries are exploring greater use of local currencies in regional trade agreements. While the US dollar remains dominant globally, gradual diversification efforts in international trade could create new opportunities for regional currencies in the future, including currencies like the Vietnamese Dong. However, financial experts repeatedly warn viewers against misinformation spreading online regarding guaranteed revaluation dates, unrealistic exchange rate rumors, or claims of secret currency reset announcements. Professional analysis must always rely on official economic data, central bank statements, trade figures, and credible financial reporting, rather than speculation alone. The State Bank of Vietnam continues emphasizing monetary stability and controlled economic management. Central bank policies typically prioritize predictable economic growth, inflation management, and export competitiveness rather than sudden currency adjustments. This measured approach has helped Vietnam maintain economic momentum during periods of international uncertainty. Another important trend is the increasing importance of Vietnam in regional trade networks. Vietnam's participation in multiple international trade agreements has improved access to major markets and strengthened the country's integration into global supply chains. As trade relationships expand, Vietnam's economic influence may continue growing internationally. Foreign exchange reserves are another factor supporting confidence. Strong reserves help central banks stabilize currency markets during periods of volatility and strengthen investor trust in financial management capabilities. Vietnam's improving reserve position has been viewed positively by many international observers. Real estate development and infrastructure construction also remain major economic drivers. Industrial zones, transportation corridors, ports, highways, airports, and urban development projects continue expanding throughout the country. Infrastructure modernization improves logistics efficiency and supports future economic growth. Meanwhile, agricultural exports continue contributing to Vietnam's trade performance. Vietnam remains a major exporter of rice, coffee, seafood, and agricultural products globally. Diversification across manufacturing, agriculture, tourism, and technology sectors provides broader economic resilience. Market analysts say that long-term confidence in any currency depends not only on economic growth, but also on institutional stability, investor trust, policy consistency, and international credibility. Vietnam's ability to maintain steady development while navigating global economic challenges has improved its international economic reputation significantly over the last decade. Another important point is youth demographics. Vietnam has a relatively young workforce compared to some aging economies in the region. A growing labor force, combined with increasing educational investment and industrial expansion, may support long-term productivity growth. As international attention continues increasing, social media discussions surrounding the Vietnamese Dong have expanded dramatically. Currency investors, forex traders, and economic commentators regularly debate whether Vietnam's future growth could eventually lead to stronger currency valuation trends. While opinions differ, most experts agree that Vietnam's economic trajectory remains one of the most closely watched stories in Asia today. Global banking institutions continue publishing increasingly optimistic reports about Vietnam's long-term growth potential. Several analysts believe Vietnam could remain among the fastest-growing economies in the region if current trends continue. Sustained economic expansion naturally increases interest in the country's financial system and currency outlook. At the same time, authorities remain cautious regarding excessive speculation. Stable financial management requires balancing many competing priorities, including exports, employment, inflation, investment flows, and economic competitiveness. Rapid currency appreciation could create challenges for exporters and manufacturing industries that remain central to Vietnam's economic model. That is why many professional economists believe gradual strengthening and stability are more realistic scenarios than dramatic overnight revaluation events. Investors should always focus on verified economic indicators rather than rumors circulating online. Looking ahead, several factors will likely determine the future direction of the Vietnamese Dong. These include global interest rate trends, export performance, inflation levels, foreign investment inflows, trade balances, energy costs, geopolitical developments, and central bank policy decisions. All of these elements interact together within the broader international financial system. Vietnam's relationship with major trading partners will also remain extremely important. Continued export demand from the United States, Europe, China, Japan, and regional Asian markets supports manufacturing activity and foreign currency earnings. Trade diversification helps reduce vulnerability to slowdowns in any single market. In addition, environmental and sustainability initiatives are becoming increasingly important for international investors. Vietnam's investments in renewable energy and sustainable industrial development may strengthen its attractiveness for future global investment partnerships. Financial technology growth could also reshape Vietnam's banking sector over time. Digital payments, mobile banking, blockchain experimentation, and online financial services continue expanding rapidly. These innovations improve financial inclusion and economic efficiency. For ordinary viewers watching this video, the key takeaway is that Vietnam's economy continues showing strong long-term growth potential, and international attention on the Vietnamese Dong is increasing because of that economic momentum. However, professional analysis always requires realistic expectations based on actual economic data and official policy decisions. There is currently no confirmed official announcement regarding any sudden large-scale Vietnamese Dong revaluation. But there is growing evidence that Vietnam's economic strength, export performance, infrastructure expansion, and foreign investment growth continue improving the country's international financial position. As always in the currency world, patience, research, and verified information remain essential. Markets can change rapidly, and economic conditions evolve continuously. Investors should stay informed through official reports, central bank updates, and credible financial analysis rather than emotional speculation. The coming years may prove extremely important for Vietnam's economic future. If current trends continue, Vietnam could strengthen its position as one of the leading emerging economies in Asia. This possibility alone is enough to keep global investors, financial institutions, and currency watchers paying very close attention to the Vietnamese Dong. We are now entering a period where competition between emerging economies is intensifying. Countries that successfully attract investment, expand exports, modernize infrastructure, and maintain financial stability are likely to gain stronger positions in global markets. Vietnam appears determined to remain among those leading economies. Many international corporations already see Vietnam as a long-term strategic destination rather than a temporary manufacturing alternative. This shift in perception is extremely important because sustained international confidence often creates long-term economic benefits that support currency stability and national growth. Meanwhile, ordinary citizens inside Vietnam are also experiencing the effects of economic transformation through expanding employment opportunities, urban development, digital innovation, and increasing international business activity. Economic modernization often creates new challenges as well, including inflation management, housing pressures, and infrastructure demands, but Vietnam's continued progress remains closely watched worldwide. As financial markets continue evolving, the Vietnamese Dong will likely remain an important discussion topic among emerging market analysts and international investors. Whether the future brings gradual strengthening, continued stability, or new policy adjustments, one thing is clear: Vietnam has become one of the most significant economic growth stories in Asia today. Thank you everyone for watching today's deep analysis on the Vietnamese Dong, exchange rate developments, and the future outlook for Vietnam's economy. If you enjoyed this update and want more professional financial news, economic analysis, and emerging market currency coverage, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and turn on notifications so you never miss our latest updates. Stay informed, stay focused, and we will continue bringing you the latest developments from the world of global finance and currency markets.